Hey, how's it going? I didn't get around to generating a new world yet, but I'll get there. So I'm just gonna stay here for now. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. I noticed the VODs have a few views. I don't know how someone is finding my VODs, but whoever's listening, thanks. That's pretty cool. So anyways, thanks for stopping by. I'm just gonna get right into the reading pretty soon. It might be a short one, might not be. I don't know. But we'll see. And I turned the mic audio up a bit, so it should be fine. Alright. Oh, yeah, I need to fix that. Whoops. That was not supposed to happen. That's my cat's bird toy. He loves to wake me up in the morning with that thing. Let me move that so it doesn't happen again. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it there. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not a problem at all. Alright. So the nice thing about nobody kind of being here, because I'm just getting started, I haven't really put out any notifications or anything yet, because I really want to get warmed up and better at it, and then I'll start letting people know that I'm streaming. So that's why I'm really surprised like the VODs have any views at all, but that's cool, man. So if you're listening to this, I don't know how you found it, but thanks. Alright. I got my book loaded up, so I'm going to read some Grimm's fairy tales today. It could be very short, or it could be very long. I don't know. But at any rate. Oh, so that's what I was going to say. The nice thing about nobody really watching, and I'm just kind of on my own right now, which I don't mind. It's nice, actually. Is I could really, like, just kind of unload right now. But I won't. I thought, it's an option, but now that I'm here in the moment, I don't really think it's necessary. But I'll just say that I would have streamed earlier in the week, but it's been kind of not a busy week, just kind of a rocky, rough week. But it's over now, and I'm really glad about that. So, anyways, just kind of experiencing life. So that's all I'll say about that. All right, so that's enough. That's enough dilly-dallying. Let's start reading. Alright, well, thanks again for anybody who's listening. If you're listening now, you're pretty awesome. Okay. Let me get one more cough out of my system before I start. I'm not going to bother you muting the mic, so just bear with me here. Okay. So, I'm going to read The Frog King, or Iron Henry. And this is the very first story in the big book of Grimm's fairy tales, the copy that I have anyways. And I remember when the friend I hang out with in their stream, they read this before. I mentioned them before. They read a few Grimm's fairy tales, but then they got disturbed by the raw nature of it. I guess because they were expecting... Everyone's so used to these fairy tales being Disney-fied, which I'm not saying anything against Disney. That's just how they did it. But, yeah, the source material is a bit different. It's not like everybody knows that, or at least, anyways, that's pretty well known that they changed it up a bit, Alright. Take a nice deep breath. Alright. Grimm's Fairy Tales, The Frog King, or Iron Henry. Once upon a time, there was a princess who went out into the forest and sat down at the edge of a cool well. She had a golden ball that was her favorite plaything. She threw it high up and caught it in the air and was delighted by all this. One time, the ball flew up very high, and as she stretched out her hand and bent her fingers to catch it again, the ball hit the ground near her and rolled, until it fell right into the water. The princess was horrified, and when she went to look for the ball, she found that the well was so deep that she couldn't see the bottom. There's my bird clock. Which bird is that? It's hard to see from here. I think it's called the white-breasted nuthatch, and that's the 11 o'clock bird. It's 11 o'clock where I am right now. So she's looking at the bottom of the well. She can't see the bottom. She's trying to see the bottom of the well that her toy ball fell into. She can't see. So she began to weep miserably and to lament. "Oh, if only I had my ball again. I'd give anything. My clothes, my jewels, my pearls, and anything else in the world to get my ball back." 1 second, sorry. So she lost her ball down the well, and she most certainly wants it back. As she sat there grieving, a frog stuck its head out of the water and said, "Why are you weeping so miserably?" "Oh," she said, "you nasty frog, you can't help me. My golden ball has fallen into the water." "Well, I don't want your pearls, your jewels, and your clothes," the frog responded. "But if you will accept me as your companion, and let me sit next to you, and let me eat from your little golden plate, and sleep in your little bed, and promise to love and cherish me, I'll fetch your ball for you." The princess thought, "What nonsense the simple-minded frog is blabbering. He's got to remain in his water. But perhaps he can get me my ball. So I'll say yes to him." And she said, "Yes, fair enough. But first, fetch me the golden ball. I promise you everything." The frog dipped his head beneath the water and dived down. It didn't take long before he came back to the surface with the ball in his mouth. He threw it onto the ground, and when the princess caught sight of the ball, she quickly ran over to it, picked it up, and was so delighted to have the ball in her hands again that she thought of nothing else but to rush back home with it. The frog called after her, "Wait, princess, take me with you, the way you promised." But she didn't pay any attention to him. The next day, the princess sat at the table and heard something coming up the marble steps. Splish, splash, splish, splash. Soon thereafter, it knocked at the door and cried out, "Princess, youngest daughter, open up." She ran to the door and opened it, and there was the frog whom she had forgotten. Horrified, she quickly slammed the door and sat down back at the table. But the king saw that her heart was thumping and said, "Why are you afraid?" "There's a nasty frog outside," she replied. "He retrieved my golden ball from the water, and I promised him that he could be my companion. But I never believed at all he could get out of the water. Now he's standing outside in front of the door and wants to come inside." As she said this, there was a knock at the door, and the frog cried out, "Princess, youngest daughter, open up. Don't you remember what you said down by the well's cool water? Princess, youngest daughter, open up." The king said, "You must keep your promise, no matter what you said. Go and open the door for the frog." She obeyed, and the frog hopped inside and followed her at her heels until they came to her chair, and when she sat down again, he cried out, "Lift me up to the chair beside you." I like this frog's attitude. Okay, he's determined. I mean, she made him a promise. What, fair is fair. Don't make promises you can't keep. The princess didn't want to do this, but the king ordered her to do it. When the frog was up at the table, he said, "Now, push your little golden plate nearer to me so that we can eat together." The princess had to do this as well, and after he had eaten until he was full, he said, Now, I'm tired and want to sleep. Bring me upstairs to your little room. Get your little bed ready so that we can lie down in it." The princess became terrified when she heard this, for she was afraid of the cold frog. She didn't dare to touch him, and now he was to lie in her bed next to her. She began to weep and didn't want to comply with her wishes at all, or with the frog's wishes. But the king became angry and ordered her to do what she had promised, or she'd be held in disgrace. Nothing helped. She had to do what her father wanted, but she was bitterly angry in her heart. So she picked up the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs into her room, lay down in her bed, and instead of setting him down next to her, she threw him, crash, against the wall. "Now you'll leave me in peace, you nasty frog." But the frog didn't fall down dead. Instead, when he fell down on the bed, he became a handsome young prince. Well, now indeed, he did become her dear companion, and she cherished him as she had promised, and in their delight they fell asleep together. The next morning, a splendid coach arrived, drawn by 8 horses, with feathers and glistening gold harnesses. The prince's faithful Henry accompanied them. He had been so distressed when he had learned his master had been turned into a frog that he had ordered 3 iron bands to be wrapped around his heart to keep it from bursting with grief. When the prince got into the coach with the princess, his faithful servant took his place at the back so they could return to the prince's realm. And after they had traveled some distance, the prince heard a loud cracking noise behind him. So he turned around and cried out, "Henry, the coach is breaking." "No, my lord, it's really nothing but the band around my heart, which nearly came apart when you turned into a frog, and your fortune fell, and you were made to live in that dreadful well." 2 more times the prince heard the cracking noise, and thought the coach was breaking, but the noise was only the sound of the bands springing from faithful Henry's heart, because his master had been released from the spell and was happy. The end. So, she certainly didn't kiss the frog. Yeah, there's no kisses were received. Instead, she slammed it against the wall to kill it. But somehow that broke the spell. So, there you go. Alright, well, that story was short and to the point, as I think most of these stories will be. It's a little cool in here. I gotta warm up a bit. I had a nice fire this morning, but it's in the other room. It was a short fire. It's starting to cool down again. I'll have to put on another instant log later. Alright, well, there was that story. The next story is going to be The Companionship of the Cat and the Mouse. So I'm going to catch my breath and rest my eyes for just a second here. I might as well sip some tea. I got my lemon green tea blend with a little bit of real lemon juice in there. It's nice and sunny out today. Still a bit cold though, but not icy cold by any means. Yesterday was very windy. And I like when it's windy out. I really do, because where I live, the air quality is very, very bad. Very bad. Yeah. But when the wind is out, it blows all the pollution out of the air. So it's nice and clean for a little while until it gets dirty again. It wasn't an issue until about a year ago, maybe a year and a half. 2 years at the most. And then suddenly the air just got extremely dirty. So what I did, first thing was get an air filter, which is nice. And then I filled my room up with just tons and tons of houseplants. I got so many houseplants in here. It's kind of like just being, almost like being outdoors. It's really like being inside a greenhouse, like a plant nursery. It's quite nice. I like it. And I just water them once a week, so it's not difficult to keep up with. And I'm lucky that my room in here, I've got a nice big window, and in the evening it gets all the sun, so the plants get plenty of sun. They're happy and healthy. Alright. I feel like reading another one, so let's do another one. If I start getting too cold, I might have to end the stream, because I can't be like shivering. And not that I'd be shivering, but it's helpful to be at a comfortable I'd rather be too warm than too cold. At least when I'm doing this. Like, I like cold weather. But when I'm doing this particular thing, I don't want to be cold because it just tenses me up. And I'd rather be too warm because you have to stay loose and relaxed. Alright. Let me get a good stretch here. So, I'm kind of in my mind trying to decide on a schedule. I'd like to do 3 days a week. I like to do things in threes. 3 days a week seems like a good balance. Although 2 days a week sounds nice, but it might be too little. 3 days might be just right. And it'll probably be around this time. But before I post a schedule and try to stick to it, I just want to see what naturally occurs, and then I'll have a good idea of what I want to make my schedule. So anyways, let's do the next story. The Companionship of the Cat and the Mouse. Oh no. Son of a gun. You know, this happens to me every time. Every time I've done the audiobook thing, there's one day out of the week, it's Thursday, today's Thursday, and it doesn't matter if I stream early or if I stream late, but if I stream on Thursday, which I'm thinking I'm going to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I just don't want to commit to it yet. But if there's ever a time I stream on Thursday, that's when the gardeners show up. They're not really gardeners, they're landscapers. They come to cut the grass and trim the plants. And yeah, it's loud and it makes a bunch of noise. Although, I don't know. I mean, this microphone, well, it's going to pick it up because it's loud. And there's really nothing I can do about it. But that's the beauty of nobody being here yet. It doesn't matter. But if anybody's listening and you hear sounds in the background, that's what that is. It's the landscapers. They're cutting the grass. They're out there with the weed whackers and the leaf blowers. There's nothing I can do about it. If I tried to stream early to avoid it, they would show up early. If I tried to stream late to avoid it, they'll show up late. It's just the way it is. So, whatever. My kitten's up in his kitten tree looking out at them right now. And then my old kitty's he likes to nap next to the houseplants. He feels like he's outside. My old cat was a feral cat. I lived in Oregon, and when I first moved there, I found them out there. Him and his brother. His brother's not around anymore. But he's still here, and yeah, they were ferals. But I rescued them. They were very hungry. In fact, that's how his brother, the orange cat, like almost literally knocked at the door. I mean, he meowed at the door because it was raining outside, and he wanted to come in where it was warm. They were hungry. They were eating out of trash cans. And then his brother was a bit more of a scaredy cat, so I had to set kibbles. And I literally did the thing like in the cartoons or in like the movie E.T., where you do a little trail of food. So I set the food, some kibbles out front in front of the door. And then I had like a little ant trail leading inside. And he was so hungry that he just had to eat, and he walked inside. And I just sat there patiently, and then as soon as he got in, I'd close the door behind him. And I had to pick him up. He was very scared. I picked him up and I set him in the little empty space in my lap. And I covered him with a pillow. And he would just stay there, and he had to nest in my lap for about 3 or 4 days until he came out. He would just come out to use the litter box and eat. And he had to nest in my lap. He was looking at me, listening. And after about 3 or 4 days, he decided it was okay to come out and hang out with his brother. His brother was just really smart and just had he was just naturally friendly. He was never scared to come in. He, like I said, he just knocked on the door and said, "Hey, can I come in?" So we let him in. And then we had to catch his brother. And then his brother got out, and I had to do that again twice, where I had to leave a little trail of food. And then the second time, we made sure he didn't get out again. Alright. So, sorry about the noise in the background, but that's another reason to not stream on Thursday. But this week was a very weird week. It was a week that was out of the ordinary. So it wasn't a routine week. But, that's why I said last week, I'll stream when I'm in the mood. So I was in the mood too today. But I think normally I'll try to go for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll see. Seems like a pretty good balance. And I'll generate a new world, so, yeah. Alright. I should probably check that the stream's okay, but I'll just assume that it is. Alright, so without further ado, had a nice little breather in between stories. Let's get started on story number 2. Once again, the companionship of the cat and mouse. A cat and a mouse wanted to live together, and so they set up a common household. They also prepared for the winter and bought a little jar of fat. But since they didn't know of a better and safer place to put it, they stuck it under the altar in the church, where it was supposed to stay until they needed it. Now, it was not long before the cat felt a craving for the fat and went to the mouse and said, "Listen, little mouse, my cousin has asked me to be godfather for her child. She gave birth to a baby boy, white with brown spots. I'm to hold him at the christening. Would you mind letting me go out today and taking care of the house by yourself?" No, answered the mouse. "Go there, and when you get something good to eat, think of me. I sure would like a little drop of that sweet red christening wine." But the cat went straight to the church and licked up the skin off the top of the fat. Yeah, that sounds like something a cat would do. Then he strolled around the city and didn't return home until evening. "You must have enjoyed yourself very much," the mouse said. "What name did they give the child?" Skin off, the cat answered. Skin off? That's a strange name. I've never heard of it before." Soon thereafter, the cat felt another craving and went to the mouse and said, I've been asked to be the godfather once more. The child has a white ring around his body. I can't refuse. You must do me a favor and look after the house." The mouse consented, and the cat went and ate up half the jar of fat. When he returned home, the mouse asked, "What name was this godchild given?" "Half gone." "Half gone? You don't say. I've never heard of such a name. I'm sure it's not on the list of proper baptismal names." I think the mouse is on to him. I don't know, though. He's about halfway there. Now, the cat could not stop thinking about the jar of fat. "I've been asked to be the godfather again for a third time. This child's all black and has white paws. Aside from that, there's not a white hair on his body. That only happens once every few years. You'll let me go, won't you?" "Skin off, half gone," the mouse said. "Those really are curious names. I'm beginning to wonder about them. Even so, go ahead." The mouse cleaned the house and put it in order. Meanwhile, the cat ate up the rest of the fat in the jar and came home stout and stuffed late at night. "Ah, what's the name of the third child?" "All gone." "All gone? Hey now, that's the most suspicious of all the names," said the mouse. "All gone. What's it supposed to mean? I've never seen it in print." See, I told you the mouse is catching on to him. Upon saying that, the mouse shook her head and went to sleep. Nobody called upon the cat to become godfather for the fourth time. However, soon winter came, and there was nothing more to be found outside. So, the mouse said to the cat, "Come, let's go to our supply that we stuck beneath the altar in the church." But when they arrived there, the jar was completely empty. "Oh," said the mouse, "now I know what's happened. It's as clear as day. You ate it all up when you went to serve as godfather. First the skin, then half, then—" "Shut up," yelled the cat. "One more word, and I'll eat you up." "All gone" was already on the tip of the poor mouse's tongue. No sooner did she say it than the cat jumped on her and swallowed her in one gulp. The end. I wasn't expecting that to be the end. Wow, that cat's a jerk. Very cat-like, though. I don't really... Let's see, what is the moral of that story? See, that's the thing, is these old stories aren't particularly for children, per se. That's what the introduction was pointing out, is that they're not... You know, they can be enjoyed by children, but they're not exclusively for children. They're sort of for all ages. So what was that about? Other than it just being funny that the cat had a very cat-like personality, which I enjoyed. I don't know. Was the cat just like I don't know. I won't get. I'll leave that up to you. You can glean from that whatever you wish. Yeah. Poor mouse. How long is this next one? I'm going to peek ahead a bit. I'm sitting closer to my TV, and that's helping my eyes a lot. Last time I was sitting too far away, and I was getting some eye strain. This one's a little bit. This one's not extremely brief like the last one. All right, I'm not ready to cut the stream yet, so I'll keep going. Maybe next time I'll do a bit of Minecraft first and then read. But for now, I just wanted to get straight into reading. I have a nice free day. This past few days have been kind of busy for me. But I already got the morning chores done. After I'm done here, I want to get a bit of firewood from 7-Eleven of all places. But 7-Eleven has a nice little bundle of light firewood. And then I got a little spot outside I can gather some kindling. There's spots, even though I'm living in a city, like the most city-like city. I'm not in New York, but I'm in another big city. I'm in the Los Angeles area. But even though I'm in the middle of like LA, you believe it or not, you can still just find firewood to gather. And they cut trees down around here, and a lot of the times they just leave a lot of it lying around. And last winter, I was able to gather so much firewood that I literally did not buy any firewood at all last year, and I still had a fire like every day. And they were like doing construction next door, and there was dead trees by the parking lot. I just cut down the dead trees and just made firewood from that. But it's a chore. I haven't felt like doing it this year, but there's plenty of like kindling, so that's what I'm gonna do after this. Get a bit of light firewood from 7-Eleven, and then gather some kindling, and that's about it. And then just kind of do whatever. My old cat needs fires in the morning. I gotta keep him very warm. He can't deal with the cold anymore. Otherwise, I just let it be cold, because I like cold weather, but I gotta keep it warm for him. Alright, I guess I'll take a sip of tea here. So yeah, when I generate this new Minecraft world, I want to find a nice spot, and I think a fun project would be to build Snow White's cottage. Well, that's what it's referred to. It's actually the Seven Dwarves cottage, but if you just go Googling it, you just Google Snow White's cottage, and that's the easiest. Anyways, and I want it to be fairly accurate, so I actually have some art books. One of them is mostly just art, and then I have a big book on the making of Snow White. And then, of course, I've got the DVD, so between those three sources, I can figure out where everything fits. I think like the staircase is right next to the front door, so that'll be a fun project. I think I'll enjoy that. That'll be something to do. And that way we can do a bit of Minecraft first. And then after a bit of Minecraft, then we'll start doing some reading. That seems like a good balance. Yeah. And I've been uploading the replays to YouTube. So yeah. Because that's the thing. I've done the audiobook thing before, but I didn't upload the replays. And one of the biggest comments I would get is, where can I watch the replays? Because at the time I was reading a novel, I was reading The Grapes of Wrath. And it's like the VODs would only stay up for a few days and they're gone. And yeah, one of the things is like, well, if I miss a chapter, I want to be able to catch up so I'm not missing out. So that's really the reason why I want to upload to YouTube. Anyways, there's the weed whacker. So normally that won't be a thing. I'll avoid streaming on Thursday, but this week was a bit topsy-turvy, so I figured, today's a good day. Tomorrow's Fishy Friday. I gotta clean the fish tank tomorrow, so I don't know if I'll stream. I'm just gonna see if I feel like it tomorrow. If I feel like it tomorrow, I will. I might. I don't know if I will or not. But I'm enjoying this. Now that I'm getting into more of a groove, I've gone through the phase of like setting everything up initially. So yeah, now I can kind of just enjoy it more. Very nice. And I'm really I've got plenty of time. So yeah, I want to get to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. That's really the big thing. That's the big thing I want to do. But I also would like to read Ozma of Oz. And then who knows, like I might want to read Treasure Island. There's so many things, and it's not just to do it for other people, but also like I'm naturally lazy. Like I can literally just get up, do my morning routine, and then just lay in bed all day until it's time to do stuff again. Like, that's just how I was born. But so there's so many books I want to read, but I never get around to it because I'm just like, I don't know. But this gives me a reason to read the books, so it's like I'm reading it for myself too. Like I probably, as much as I've wanted to read Grimm's fairy tales, like I've tried listening to the audiobooks, but I just kind of, I don't know, like I enjoy it, but I find this easier, like yeah, I this gives me an excuse. It gets me reading it. So there we go. It just works out well. Because that's the other thing. I probably would have never read Grapes of Wrath had I not read it as an audiobook. But I got to it beginning to end. So, anyways. Alright, I'm not familiar with this next one. Oh, let's see. I'm reading the first few lines. It kind of sounds like Hansel and Gretel, but I'm not sure. That's how the first few lines seem, but it has a different title. It's called The Virgin Mary's Child. A poor woodcutter and his wife lived at the edge of a large forest with their only child, a 3-year-old little girl. Okay, so it's not Hans and Gretel, because that was a brother and sister, but a similar opening. I'm so sorry about the noise in the background, but you know what? It is what it is. I'm looking at the neighbor's cat right now. The neighbor's cat looks just like my kid, and it's so funny. It's almost like they're long-lost relatives. Alright. They should be done soon. Especially this time of year. This time of year, there's really not much to do out there. Like, it's not fall, so there's not a bunch of dead leaves on the ground. There's really not much going on. Sometimes I think they just go out there and they blow dust around with a leaf blower and make a bunch of noise just to make it seem like they're doing something, just so they can get their paycheck, but there's like really nothing to be done out there. Anyways. Alright. A poor woodcutter and his wife lived at the edge of a large forest with their only child, a 3-year-old little girl. They were so poor that they couldn't afford daily meals anymore, and didn't know how they would provide food for their daughter. One morning, the woodcutter, who was distressed by all this, went into the forest to work. See, he's out there cutting the wood right now. You can hear him. As he began chopping wood, a tall, beautiful woman suddenly appeared before him. She was wearing a crown of shining stars on her head, and she said to him, "I am the Virgin Mary, mother of the Christ child. Since you are poor and needy, bring me your child. I'll take her with me and be her mother and look after her." The woodcutter obeyed her. He fetched his child and gave her to the Virgin Mary, who took her up to heaven. Once there, everything went well for the girl. She ate only cake and drank sweet milk. Her clothes were made of gold, and the little angels played with her. One day, about the time the girl had turned 14, the Virgin Mary had to go on a long journey. Before she went away, she summoned the girl and said, "Dear child, I am trusting you with the keys to the 13 doors of the kingdom of heaven. You may open 12 of the doors and look at all the marvelous things inside, but I forbid you to open the 13th door that this little key unlocks." The maiden promised to obey her commands, and after the Virgin Mary had departed, she opened a new room every day and looked into the rooms of the heavenly realm. In each one of them, there was an apostle in dazzling light. Never in her life had she seen such splendor and glory. When she had finished opening the 12 doors, the forbidden door was the only one left. For a long time, she resisted her curiosity, but finally, she was overcome by it and opened the 13th door as well. And as the door sprang open, she saw the Holy Trinity sitting in fire and splendor. Then she touched the flames a little bit with her finger, and the finger turned golden. Quickly, she slammed the door shut and ran away. Her heart started pounding and wouldn't stop. A few days later, the Virgin Mary returned from her journey and asked the maiden to return the keys of heaven to her. When the girl handed her the bunch of keys, the Virgin looked into her eyes and said, "Didn't you open the 13th door?" "No," she answered. Then the Virgin Mary put her hand on the maiden's heart and could feel it pounding and pounding. Now she knew the girl had disobeyed her command and opened the door. Once again she asked, "Are you sure you didn't open the door?" "I'm sure," the maiden denied doing it for a second time. When the Virgin Mary glanced at the finger that had become golden from touching the heavenly fire, she knew the maiden was guilty and said, "You've disobeyed me and lied. You're no longer worthy to stay in heaven." All at once, the girl sank into a deep sleep, and when she awoke, she was lying on the earth beneath a tall tree, surrounded by thick bushes, so that she was completely encircled. Her mouth was also locked, so that she couldn't utter one word. Since the tree was hollow, she could sit inside it during the rain and storms, and it was also where she slept. Roots and wild berries were her only food, and she went out looking for them as far as she could walk. In the autumn, she gathered roots and leaves and carried them into the hollow tree. When snow and ice came, she sat inside the tree. Before long, her clothes became tattered, and one piece after the other fell off her body. So she sat there, completely covered by leaves. As soon as the sun began to shine again, she went out and sat in front of the tree. Her long hair covered her on all sides like a cloak. One day during springtime, she was sitting in front of the tree when someone forced his way through the bushes. It was the king, who had been hunting in the forest and lost his way. And he was amazed to find such a beautiful maiden sitting alone in this desolate spot. So he asked her whether she would like to come with him to his castle. However, she couldn't answer. Instead, she merely nodded a little with her head. Then the king lifted her up onto his horse and brought her to the castle. Soon, he became so fond of her that he made her his wife. After a year had passed, the queen gave birth to a beautiful son. During the night, however, the Virgin Mary appeared before her and said, "If you'll tell me the truth and say that you unlocked the forbidden door, I'll give you back the power of speech, without which you really can't enjoy life. If you are stubborn and won't confess, I shall take your baby away with me." But the queen remained stubborn and denied that she had opened the forbidden door. So the Virgin Mary took the little child and disappeared with him. The next morning, when the baby was no longer there, a rumor began circulating among the people that the queen was an ogress and had eaten her own child. Then another year passed, and the queen gave birth to another son. Once more, the Virgin Mary appeared before her and asked her to tell the truth. Otherwise, she would also lose the second child. But the queen persisted in denying that she had opened the forbidden door. So the Virgin Mary took the child away with her. The next morning, when this baby was also missing, the king's counselors said openly that the queen was an ogress, and they demanded that she be executed for her godless deeds. However, the king ordered them to keep quiet and refused to believe them because he loved his wife so much. In the third year, the queen gave birth to a princess, and the Virgin Mary appeared before her once more and took her to heaven, where she showed her how her two oldest children were playing with the globe of the earth. Thereupon, the Virgin Mary asked the queen once more to confess her mistake and stop lying. However, the queen wouldn't budge and continued to stand by her story. So the Virgin Mary left her and took away her third child too. Now the king could no longer restrain his counselors, who continued to claim that the queen was an ogress. They were certain, and since she couldn't speak, she couldn't defend herself. Consequently, she was condemned to die at the stake. As she stood tied to the stake, and the fire began to burn all around her, her heart was moved, and she thought to herself, "Oh, before I die, I'd like to confess to the Virgin Mary that I opened the forbidden door in heaven. I've been so wicked by denying it all this time." And just as she was thinking all this to herself, heaven opened up right then and there, and the Virgin Mary descended with the two little sons at either side and the daughter in her arms. The fire was extinguished by itself, and the Virgin Mary stepped forward to the queen and said, "Since you want to speak the truth, your guilt is forgiven." Then she handed the queen her children, opened her mouth so that she could speak from then on, and bestowed happiness on her for the rest of her life. The end. Well, that was an interesting one. Very ethereal. So I'll let you glean from that as you will. I can't tell you what to think about that story. That's the kind of story you just gotta let it digest. I don't even know what to think of that, really. I mean, obviously it seems like tell the truth and whatnot, but there's got to be more to it than that. So yeah, that was an interesting one. It's quite a change of pace from the frog and the cat and the mouse. That was something else. I've never heard that one before. That was all completely new to me. Let me see how long this next one is. My voice is not going yet, which is nice. I'm not like my voice is hanging in there quite well, as a matter of fact. I'll be curious to see how the mic audio is. It might be a little too loud, but I don't think so. It should be good where it is. See, the thing is, I don't want it too low, because if I over project, it's unnatural. And I think it's helpful for me to speak as naturally as possible, not just in tone, but in volume as well. If I'm like raising my voice to an unnatural volume, that's really not going to help anything. I'm kind of tempted to do a BRB real quick. I don't know. This next one's pretty short though, so I think I can be okay. I tell you what, I'm going to read this next one, and I might do a BRB, or I might just cut it there. We'll see. Because it's slowly, the temperature is going down and down by like a 1/4 degree with each story. So as I get colder, I start to tighten up a little more and more. But I'm not quite there yet. I can keep going. So I'll do another one. This has been almost an hour. Well, it's been about an hour now. Yeah. Because I remember the 11 o'clock bird saying right when I started. And then the next bird's about to sing. What's the next bird? So the last bird was the white-breasted nuthatch. You know, people were trolling when they're having a laugh when they were naming a lot of these birds. they had to be. I mean, you could argue that the meaning of the words changed over time, but that is just too much of a coincidence. They had to be having a laugh. I mean, you got to just make your own entertainment. You got to just find humor wherever you can sometimes, So I'm sure some of these names, they were just like, well, I'm just gonna give this bird a funny name just for a laugh, and it's just gonna stick. So the white-breasted nuthatch was the last one, and the next bird, the 12 o'clock bird, is it's kind of hard to see from here. I don't have good I have good eyesight. I'm thinking like 20/20, but I don't see very far. Like some people can read far away better than I can. A lot of people actually. But I wouldn't call myself nearsighted. It's some kind of finch. I can't tell. The hour hand is kind of covering it up too. It's a house finch. I think it says house finch. Okay. Yeah. Alright, the house finch. That's the next one in about 12 minutes. I'm getting better at the buffering thing. I gotta buffer ahead a little bit. So I haven't been stumbling over the words too much, which is nice. That's really one of the big goals, is to not stumble over words. Okay. I'm going to hit the cough button for just a minute here, and then I'll get started on the next story. Oh, no, I'm not. That's right, I'm not on the right screen. Okay, never mind. Then I'm just going to cough. So, hey, that's life. What are you going to do? Oh, no, someone might never listen to my stream again because I coughed. Sorry, if you want to mute it now, it's a good time. There we go, that's better. Sipping my tea here. Alright, this might be the last one for this stream. Or I might do one more after this. I don't think I'm going to go too much longer. But we'll do this one at least. Where's my cat? Where's my kitten? Is he in here? I think he got sick of hearing my voice. He needed some peace and quiet, so he went to the other room to nap. I bet I know where he is. He's probably... There's one bed. It's the best bed in the whole place. It's a little cat bed on top of a table. I bet he's over there. Alright. My old kitty's here, though. He's in his little forest hideout. He likes to lay there because he's next to the plants, like I mentioned, but he also likes to lay there because it's the one spot in the whole apartment where the kitten won't bother him. Just something about that spot. Kitten knows to leave him alone there, so he gets peace and quiet there. And he gets to listen to me read him a bedtime story. Well, nap, it's nap time. Same thing, right? A nap time story. Okay. Hey, I think the gardeners are done, the landscapers. That's cool. Alright. The next story, the fourth story in the big book of Grimm's fairy tales, is called Good Bowling and Card Playing. So for those of you who don't know, bowling has been around a long time. Although in olden and medieval times, it was played outdoors, not in a bowling alley. Little wooden pins, and I believe the bowl was much smaller. It was not a big, heavy thing. It was more softball size, not like baseball, but like a softball, which is a bit bigger. It was just a wooden ball. And yeah, the bowling's been around for a while. I think it was 12 pins. But yeah, it's one of those things that's been around a long time, and I don't think they would play it on a hard surface. I think it was just played like in like on a dirt, an even dirt ground, or maybe grass. I think generally it'd be kind of like a little sandy or dirt area, much like horseshoes. If you've ever played horseshoes, kind of a similar surface. So, and of course, I don't know how far back cards go, but I would imagine. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the really old-fashioned cards. I think it's called Romanian cards or something. Like really kind of I can't think of another word to describe it other than pretty. Like really pretty-looking cards. Very like, I'm not sure. No, that's not the right word, but just like the cards are very artistic looking. Like you imagine like the king and the queen and the jack, but more elaborate and just kind of like detailed and just really beautiful looking. I think it's Romanian hearts or something like that. I don't know. If you go to like what is it? There's the website where you play board games with other people. I'm trying to think. It's called like playboardgames.com or something like that. It's you can go there and play Carcassonne. That's where I went to play Carcassonne. I go there and play Carcassonne sometimes. I might be mispronouncing that. Carcassonne. You go play online with other people for free. And they've got like checkers and chess. Although if you're going to play chess, you want to go to chess.com. But they have all sorts of games. They don't have like Monopoly or, like the common stuff, but they've got like the tabletop games. They got the most recent one. I think it's called Railways of the American something Railways. I don't know. They've got like a train tycoon game. It was really cool. They just added recently. But yeah, like playboardgames.com. And anyways, that's where I saw the Romanian hearts. They've got like that stuff. Anyways. Yeah, really cool. So, bowling and card playing. So yeah, and I guess the Grimm brothers, I read the introduction, they would have been gathering these stories in the 1700s, I believe. I think that's when they were doing that, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. The Grimm's Fairy Tales, Brothers Grimm, however you want to say it, story number 4. Good bowling and card playing. Once upon a time, there was an old king who had the most beautiful daughter in the world. One day he announced, "Whoever can keep watch in my old castle for 3 nights can have the princess for his bride." Now, there was a young man from a poor family who thought to himself, why not risk my life? I've got nothing to lose and a lot to win. What's there to think about? So, he appeared before the king and offered to keep watch in the castle for 3 nights. "You may request 3 things to take with you into the castle, but they have to be lifeless objects," the king said. Well, I'd like to take a carpenter's bench with a knife, a lathe, and fire. All of these things were carried into the castle for him. When it turned dark, he himself went inside. I'm thinking, what's he going to do with a carpenter's bench with a knife, a lathe, and a fire? I don't have good foresight with stories. Like, lots of people are really good at, seeing what's coming. I've never been like that. I'm always the one person who's like, "Oh, I didn't see that one coming," even when it's extremely obvious. So, that's just my nature. So, I'll be pleasantly surprised. So all of these things were carried into the castle for him, and when it turned dark, he himself went inside. At first, everything was quiet. He built a fire, placed the carpenter's bench with a knife next to it, and sat down at the lathe. Toward midnight, however, a rumbling could be heard, first softly, then more loudly. Biff, baff, he, holla ho! It became more dreadful, and then it was somewhat quiet. Finally, a leg came down the chimney and stood right before him. "Hey there," the young man cried out. "How about some more? One is too little." The noise began once again. Another leg fell down the chimney, and then another and another, until there were 9. "That's enough now. I've got enough for bowling, but there are no balls. Out with them." There was a tremendous uproar, and 2 skulls fell down the chimney. He put them in the lathe and turned them until they were smooth. "Now, they'll roll much better." Then he did the same with the legs and set them up like bowling pins. "Hey, now I can have some fun." Suddenly, 2 large black cats appeared and strode around the fire. "Meow! Meow!" they screeched. "We're freezing! We're freezing!" "You fools, what are you screaming about? Sit down by the fire and warm yourselves." After the cats had warmed themselves, they said, "Good fellow, we want to play a round of cards." "All right," he replied, "but show me your paws. You've got such long claws that I've got to give them a good clipping before we begin." Upon saying this, he grabbed them by the scruffs of their necks and lifted them up to the carpenter's bench. There he fastened them to the vise and beat them to death. What? Why is he doing that? I don't like this guy anymore. What's wrong with him? That seems uncalled for to me. Well then. Afterward, he carried them outside and threw them into a pond that lay across from the castle. Just as he returned to the castle and wanted to settle down and warm himself by the fire, many black cats and dogs came out of every nook and cranny, more and more, so that he couldn't hide himself. They screamed, stamped on the fire, and kicked it about so that the fire went out. So he grabbed his carving knife and yelled, "Get out of here, you riff-raff!" And he began swinging the knife. Most of the cats and dogs ran away. The others were killed, and he carried them out and threw them into the pond. Then he went back inside to the fire and blew the sparks so that the fire began again and he could warm himself. After he had warmed himself, he was tired and lay down on a large bed that stood in a corner. Just as he wanted to fall asleep, the bed began to stir and raced around the entire castle. "Oh, that's fine with me. Just keep it up." So the bed drove around as though 6 horses were pulling it over the stairs and landings. Bing, bang! It turned upside down, from top to bottom, and he was beneath it. So he flung the blankets and pillows into the air and jumped off. Anyone who wants a ride can have one. Then he lay down next to the fire until dawn. In the morning, the king arrived, and when he saw the young man lying asleep, he thought he was dead and said, what a shame." But when the young man heard these words, he awoke, and as soon as he saw the king, he stood up. Then the king asked him how things had gone during the night. "Quite well. One night's gone by smoothly. The other 2 will go by as well." Indeed, the other nights were just like the first. But he already knew what to do, and so on the 4th day, he was rewarded with the king's beautiful daughter. The end. Boy, that's I'm kind of dumbfounded by that one. Let me sit here and just digest that for a second. So, seems like I don't know. It's kind of like a sort of a haunted house story. Is that where the old haunted house story came from? Where you're supposed to like spend the night in a haunted house in order, like, you get the will to the mansion or something. You get the deed to the house, but you gotta. You know what? That's probably where that came from. Because the castle seemed like it was sort of haunted. So what's the deal with that? Like, like I said, I'll let you decide what to get from that story. You can get nothing from it. That's perfectly fine too. Who says you have to, get anything from it? But yeah, I guess that's where the haunted house story came from. Kind of a weird one. I don't like how he killed the cats. What the heck was up with that, man? That seemed really unnecessary. They just came in and said, "Hey, you want to play some cards?" And he killed them. I'm like, well, what was the point of that? It was weird. I think they were black cats, and I guess in olden times, black cats were an ill omen. So, what's the term I'm looking for? Kind of, at the time, I guess it's just sort of aged differently. Yeah. So anyways, that was a weird one. But the guy got to marry the princess in the end, so I don't know. I guess that's kind of like if you go through some difficulties, maybe there's reward at the end. I don't know. Anyways, how long is this next one? Oh, it's pretty short. I'm just gonna go ahead and read the next one now. I need to wipe that last story, from my head. Not that it's gonna go anywhere, but I'm not saying I disliked it. It was so weird when he killed the cats. But I think it's because the cats were black, and like I said, in the olden times, black cats were like bad luck, an ill omen. So anyways, whatever. Story number 5. The Wolf and the 7 Kids. A goat had 7 young kids, whom she loved very much and carefully protected from the wolf. One day, when she had to go and fetch some food, she called them all together and said, "Dear children, I must go out to find some food. So be on your guard against the wolf, and don't let him inside. Pay close attention because he often disguises himself. But you can recognize him right away by his gruff voice and black paws. Protect yourselves. If he gets into the house, he'll eat you all up." That's funny. I was just watching another streamer, Chubo, Chuboh, Chubo, on Twitch, and I really enjoy the games he streams. He streams oftentimes these homemade games, and he was streaming a homemade game that was, I guess, made by a child, I guess like a middle schooler or maybe even younger. I guess they had like this after school project where they would make video games, and it must have been made in the early 90s. It was a computer game. And it was this story. It was a goat and a bunch of kids, and a wolf would come in, and it was sort of like a choose your own adventure. And it was kind of like, I don't know, it was funny because as he was playing the game, it seemed like it was kind of difficult to do the right thing, and you would just always the wolf would end up eating the family, and it was kind of like grim dark, but it was funny. But yeah, that was a memorable one. That was recently. So yeah, shout outs to Chubo. I enjoy. He doesn't stream very often, so whenever he streams, like, it's just kind of a nice surprise, kind of like Bardic Broadcast, where you never know when they're gonna stream. So when it happens, you hope you catch it. So yeah, all right. You know, when I first did the audiobook thing, I was very determined to just read it and not interrupt at all, because I wanted to create more of an audiobook experience. But I found that to be a very flawed way to do it, because if I'm going to read it live, I want to be able to kind of just react to the chat most of all. Because like people would show up and they would say something in the chat, but because I wanted to create such an audiobook experience, I wouldn't react to the chat unless I was getting ready to read or unless I was done reading. So I would talk to the chat and then I would start reading, and I would not stop until I was done. And then once I was done, I would look at, I'd look at the chat. Not that, I would glance at the chat mid-read, but I wouldn't react to it until I was done reading. And then I would say, I would react to it then, which was such a flawed way to do it, because my thinking at the time was, if I upload it to YouTube and people want to listen to the replay, they don't want to like just have the story interrupted. But I think this is a better way to do it, where I can just kind of, if someone's chatting and I want to react, I can just react and break it up, and that's a more enjoyable live experience. And if I also have, if I want to put in my 2 cents about the story, that's fun too. So yeah. So anyways, the mother goat was telling her children to protect themselves, because if he gets into the house, he'll eat you all up. So, upon saying this, the goat went out on her way, but it was not long before the wolf arrived at the door and called out, "Open up, dear children. I'm your mother and have brought you some beautiful things." Well, wait a minute. The mother said he has a gruff voice And maybe he tried to sound like the mama goat, but we'll see what happens. Oh, I think the goats are on to him. The 7 kids said, "You're not our mother. She has a lovely, soft voice, and yours is gruff." Ah, see, I told you. "You're the wolf, and we're not going to open the door." Sound familiar, huh? They're not going to open the door by the hairs of their chinny chin chin. And now it doesn't say that, but see, there you go. That's I guess this is the old school. I guess they just slimmed it down to 3 pigs instead of 7 goats. The wolf went away to a shopkeeper and bought a big piece of chalk, which he ate, and it made his voice soft. Okay, story, if you say so. I would think that would make it worse. But I'm just gonna go along with it. Maybe some lemon tea would work better, but okay, well, there you go. The chalk softened his voice. Then he returned to the house. He returned to the house door of the 7 kids and called out with a soft voice, "Dear children, let me in. I'm your mother, and I've brought something for each of you." But the wolf had put his paw on the windowsill, and when the children saw it, they said, "You're not our mother. She doesn't have a black paw like yours. You're the wolf. We're not going to open the door for you." So the wolf ran to a baker and said, "Baker, put some dough on my paws for me." And after that was done, the wolf went to the miller and said, "Sprinkle some white flour on my paws." The miller said, "No. No, if you don't do it, I'll eat you up." So the miller had to do it. Now, the wolf went once again to the house door of the 7 kids and said, "Dear children, let me in. I'm your mother, and I've brought something for each of you." The 7 kids wanted to see the paws first, and when they saw that they were snow white and heard the wolf speak so softly, they thought he was their mother and opened the door. Once the wolf entered, however, they recognized him and quickly hid themselves as best they could. The first kid slid under the table. The second hid in the bed. The third in the oven. The fourth in the kitchen. The fifth in the cupboard. The sixth under the large wash basin. And the 7th in the clock case. However, the wolf found them all and swallowed them, except for the youngest in the clock case, who remained alive. Yeah, this is certainly the game that Juba was playing, or the story the game was based on. When the wolf had satisfied his craving, he went off. Shortly thereafter, the mother goat came home, and oh, what a terrible sight! The wolf had been there and had devoured her dear children. She thought they were all dead, but then the youngest jumped out of the clock case and told her how everything had happened. In the meantime, the wolf, who was stuffed, had gone to a green meadow, where he had laid himself down in the sun and fallen into a deep sleep. The old goat thought she still might be able to save her children. Therefore, she said to the youngest kid, "Take the scissors, needle, and thread, and follow me." After she left the house, she found the wolf lying on the ground in the meadow and snoring. "There's that nasty wolf," she said, and inspected him from all sides. "There he is after eating my 6 children for supper. Give me the scissors. Oh, if only they're still alive inside him." Then she cut his belly open, and the 6 kids that had been swallowed whole by the gluttonous wolf jumped out and were unscathed. Immediately, she ordered them to gather large and heavy stones and to bring them to her. Then she filled his stomach with them, and the kids sewed him up again and hid behind a hedge. Now, when the wolf had finished sleeping, he felt that his stomach was very heavy and said, "Oh, it's been rumbling and tumbling in my belly. It's rumbling and tumbling in my belly. And I've only eaten 6 kids." He thought he had better have a drink of fresh water to help himself, and he looked for a well, but when he leaned over, he couldn't stand straight because of the stones and fell into the water. When the 7 kids saw this, they came running and danced joyfully around the well. The end. Well, that one's pretty straightforward. I liked that one. I don't know why I liked it, I just did. I mean, the goats got to survive. The goats didn't die. That was a happy ending, right? Now, you could argue that the wolf's just being a wolf and he's just trying to eat and nature's just taking its course. I mean, each of them is just doing what they would do. And, and then the wolf has to eat. He doesn't want to starve to death, obviously. And just the same for the goats. They don't want to be eaten. Who would want to be? I don't know. It's just, maybe that's just the balance of nature in that story. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to think. That one was a fun one, though. Cool. Let's see. Oh, this one's extremely short. Let's do this one too. This one's super, super short. And let me see, how long is the one after this? I might just... Oh, the other one is really short too. Oh, these are all really short. However... Oh, okay. Well, I found a long one. Alright. So there's like some super short ones. I'm going to try and decide where I want to end it, because I do need a bathroom break here. But I don't really want to... If I do a BRB, that's kind of pointless, because I'll do a BRB and then just come back and end the stream. So what's the point of that? Alright, where am I? Alright, here I am. So I got one... I think I'll do one more. I'll do one more, and then this is going to be the last one for this stream. Alright, because speaking of nature, I gotta answer nature's call anyways, so... Let's do this last one for now. And then when I come back, I've got 2 short ones before a long one. So yeah, that works out. So this is going to be the last one for this stream. So yeah, now that I'm sitting closer to the TV, my eyes have not been strained at all, really. I have not felt any eye strain, so that's nice. I think I found the sweet spot. Alright, this seems like a good spot to end it after this story here. So, how about instead of sipping my tea, I'm going to sip some apple cider vinegar here, diluted, of course. Raw and unfiltered, although diluted. I like to drink it every day. They say it's very good for you. I think it's good for the liver. It's a good detoxifier. Now, my own anecdotal evidence, I'm not a doctor or anything, but self-care has sort of become a hobby of mine. I think, I'm just guessing here, but I think apple cider vinegar is also a good nitric oxide booster. I could be wrong about that, but I'm just guessing. But from what I've read and glanced about it, it's good for the liver as well, so I like to have that once a day. I mentioned in my last stream that I do like the old Snow White story, and just Snow White in general. It's my favorite Disney movie. And I'm drinking it from a very nice mug that my best friend, gave to me. I think it was a birthday present. Yeah, it was a birthday present, not a Christmas present. I got it for my birthday. He knows I like Snow White. We used to do a lot of Disneyland trips together. I don't go to Disneyland anymore because it's just not the same place I grew up with. It's become such a cynical place. All the quote-unquote magic has been ripped out of it, and the people who work there are just not friendly. When you go to Disneyland these days, the people who work there, they just seem so miserable. Like, do you not realize there are so many more worse jobs that you could have? And they just seem like they're so miserable there. They don't want to be friendly. Now, I'm not blaming the people themselves. That's the upper management. Because upper management just decided one day, we're making enough money. We don't need to spend money on all this extra training. If the employees want to seem miserable, people are still going to show up. They crossed a certain threshold where they realized they didn't have to put in as much effort anymore because people would just show up anyways. So they decided we can just raise the prices to an astronomical level. People are going to still continue to show up. Part of it's supply and demand as well, where there's a short supply, there's only so many Disney theme parks, but the demand is high, people are showing up, and as the population increases, the attendance numbers go up. And anyways, to sum it all up, Disneyland is not the same place it was when I was growing up. So I just, I don't really go there anymore, especially the last 2 years. My best friend has offered to take me this month. He's going to go in about 2 weeks, and he offered to buy me a ticket, and I'm just really not even I could go 2 weeks from now, but I'm not chomping at the bit, because it's not just that. Like in 2005, it went through a lot of changes. If you're a Disney Parks fan, you know about the Pressler years, where that was a time where they started cutting costs. So anyways, to make a long story short, Disneyland was a very big part of my childhood. And my sort of high school years as well. I would do a lot of solo trips there. It was kind of just a big part of my life. But I got to the point where I didn't want to keep going there and pretending that it was still the place it was when I was growing up. I can't help but face the reality that it's just not the same place anymore. And it's just getting more and more so that's the case. There was that thing that happened a couple years ago where there was like a big fight that broke out in Toontown. And that was just kind of like the cherry on the sundae, the cherry on the poisonous sundae. Where it was like, there's been tragedies at Disneyland. It's like not the first time, but just seeing it on, seeing the footage of it and the thing of how they just let them keep fighting in Toontown and they didn't break it up. For it just kept going and going and going and going, and it just didn't stop. And then finally, quote unquote, security shows up. Basically does nothing. It's become so absurd. I used to have nightmares about and I've told this to someone else. I've told this I've had nightmares where I'd be at Disneyland. But it was like a bizarro Disneyland where it was haunted by ghosts, and it was just really weird, a really weird nightmare bizarro version of Disneyland. And I was telling this to a friend. He's like, "Dude, I've had the same dreams." So, anyways, it's I'm opening myself up here, but the nice thing is basically nobody's listening, so. If maybe you're going back to listen to old streams, 5 years from now, it'll probably still be up there, but yeah. So, you get the idea. So I like to drink. My friend gave me this Snow White mug for my birthday, and I never really had a use for it because you can't put coffee in it. You can't put hot liquids in it. It's not microwave safe. It's not dishwasher safe, but it's a very nice mug. And it's a picture of Snow White, and she's holding an apple, and a bite has been taken out of the apple. And the apple is golden. It's the same color of the apple cider vinegar, which is a nice touch. So I drink apple cider vinegar out of it because I like to have that. And green tea is my daily dose of liquids. That keep me healthy. So yeah, it's nice to finally have a use for this thing. So it seems perfect. What could be better? Apple cider vinegar out of a Snow White mug where she's holding an apple that's the same color as the drink. I mean, what more could you ask for? I can imagine someone's fast forwarding through this nonsense right now, or just thinking, "Oh, please shut up! Please just read the darn story again." Okay, I will oblige you. After I take a sip of this. Yeah, that's good apple cider vinegar. It's so good, I think I'll take another sip. Alright. So this is going to be the last one for today. If anybody out there in this universe is listening right now, you are amazing. And I'm glad that you're listening, and I'm glad that I could share this moment with you, even if it's a replay. Alright, here we are. Story number 6, which is a number divisible by 3. And if you're into numbers, 3 is kind of a magic number. So we're going to end it here. The Nightingale and the Blind Worm. I'm not into numbers, by the way. I hate math. I made an oath to myself when I was very young. I said, I'll do whatever I have to get through this life, but I am not going to deal with math. You know, I can add and subtract and multiplication and division, and that's about it. I swore to myself, I said, I'll use a calculator and I'll get by through this life without having to just jam a bunch of math into my head, because it was a little bit fun. I was good at it and I could do it, but I got better things to do. So if you're good at math, nothing against you. I'm glad. The world needs people good at math, but that's not me. So okay, but I do like the number 3. And back to the Disneyland thing, 33 was my favorite number for a long time. It sort of is because of the whole club. There's a Club 33 at Disneyland, which is like the secret club. Not so secret anymore, and everyone knows about it. But then it sort of became less of a favorite number because of the whole masonry thing, which is, if you know much about Walt, he was sort of connected to the Masons. So I assume that's why he picked that to be because he had to pick an address so that he could have alcohol delivered to the club, and you needed like a mailing address. So he picked the number 33, and I assume that was because of his connections to the Masons. So yeah, it was my favorite number. It sort of still is, but because of the whole Mason thing, it's sort of less my favorite number. But we don't need to get into all that. We're on Twitch, so we got to be careful what we say. Ooh, you don't want to say the wrong thing on Twitch, or they'll erase me. So I'll play along. Don't worry, Twitch. I'll be a good boy. Anyways, I'll follow the rules. I'm not here to rock the boat or shake things up. I'm just here to read stories and have a good time. But yeah, 3 is a cool number. But I'm not a math person. So, the Nightingale and the Blind Worm. This is good practice. I feel like I'm getting back into the swing of things already. Once upon a time, there lived a nightingale and a blind worm, each with one eye. For a long time, they lived together peacefully and harmoniously in a house. However, one day, the nightingale was invited to a wedding And she said to the blind worm, "I've been invited to a wedding, and don't particularly want to go with one eye. Would you be so kind as to lend me yours? I'll bring it back to you tomorrow." The blind worm gave her the eye out of the kindness of her heart. But when the nightingale came back home the following day, she liked having two eyes in her head and being able to see on both sides. So she refused to return the borrowed eye to the blind worm. Then the blind worm swore that she would avenge herself on the nightingale's children and the children of her children. "Well," replied the nightingale, "see if you can find me," to her. Then she filled his stomach with them, and the kids sewed him up. Oh, I hit the wrong button, sorry. Whoops. Hold on. Give me a second here. Okay. So, the nightingale borrowed an eye from the blind worm, and when she came back, she didn't want to give it back. I need to get up and move around, too, so another reason to end the stream. So she came back, and the blind worm was pretty upset. And she swore to avenge herself on the nightingale's children and the children of her children. "Well," replied the nightingale, "see if you can find me. I'll build my nest in the linden so high, so high, so high, you'll never be able to find it, no matter how hard you try." Ever since that time, all the nightingales have had two eyes, and all the blind worms none. But wherever the nightingale builds her nest, a blind worm lives beneath it in the bushes and constantly tries to crawl up the tree, pierce the eggs of her enemy, and drink them up. The end. I really botched that one, so sorry about that. See, that's the other thing is I've always felt that there's a warm-up period, and then there's sort of like, after you warm up, there's a prime or like a crest that you ride, and then eventually you get to like the cool down where it's like the opposite of warming up, where you kind of just get tired and stuff like that happens. But to be fair, I did like take a big rambling break, so anyways. I'm not going to read it again because that would just be silly, but there's that one. I guess I could read one more. This next one is really short. We'll go ahead and just do one more. So, this will be the last one, and it's story number 7. That's a lucky number, right? We might as well end it here. Okay. Grimm's Fairy Tales, story number 7. The Stolen Pennies. One day, a father was sitting at the table with his wife and children, and a good friend who was visiting him, and they were having their noonday meal. As they were sitting there, the clock struck 12, and the visitor saw the door open, and a pale child dressed in snow-white clothes entered. He didn't look around or say anything, but went silently into the next room. Shortly thereafter, he returned and went away just as quietly as he had entered. On the second and third day, the child came again. Finally, the visitor asked the father who the beautiful child was that entered the room every day at noon. The father answered that he knew nothing about him. He hadn't seen anything. The next day, as the clock struck noon, the child entered again, and the visitor pointed the child out to the father, but he didn't see the boy. Neither did the mother, nor the child, nor the children. The visitor stood up, went to the door, opened it a little, and looked inside. There he saw the pale child sitting on the floor, digging and rummaging in the cracks of the boards. However, as soon as the child noticed the visitor, he disappeared. It was kind of spooky. Now, the visitor told the family what he had seen and gave an exact description of the boy. The mother was then able to recognize the child and said, "Alas, it's my own dear child who died 4 weeks ago." Then they ripped up the boards of the floor and found 2 pennies that the boy had received from his mother at one time to give to a poor man, but the child had thought, "You can buy yourself a biscuit for that." Therefore, he had kept the pennies and hidden them in the cracks of the floor. This is why he hadn't been able to rest in his grave, and had come back every day at noon to look for the pennies. So, the parents gave the money to a poor man, and after that, the little child was never seen again. The end. Ooh, that was a spooky story. I don't know if that one really has any moral or not, or what the deal with that is, but yeah, that was something else. Very vivid and visual story for me, at least. I could really just picture the child coming in and looking for those pennies. I don't know, I mean, I guess there's something about honoring the dead and just, I don't know, what have you. But anyways, I had a lot of fun today. I really enjoyed this today. I needed this today. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I had sort of a rocky and rough week. But, you know, it's just gotta get it out of your system and live life. And then when things are nice, just go with it. That's what I do. Because you never know what tomorrow's gonna bring. So that's why I was like, you know what? Today's a nice day. I'm in the mood to do this, so I did it, and I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed it today. So next time, when I come back, I'll go ahead and do more Grimm's Fairy Tales, and I feel like I'm just about ready to do Ozma of Oz. Yeah. Part of me wants to kind of just get started on The Hobbit, but the other thing is, I kind of want to see if maybe someone starts showing up. And I also want to get my schedule figured out. I'll know when it's time to start reading The Hobbit. I'll feel it in my bones and I'll just feel compelled to do it. So I'll probably come back and do a bit more Grimm's Fairy Tales. The next story will be the 8th story, or The Symbol for Infinity. And it's titled The Hand with the Knife. So I'll do that one next, and then maybe after that we'll do Ozma of Oz. I don't know, I can't really make any promises yet. The only thing I know for sure is I'll come back with story number 8. So I'll definitely do a bit more Grimm's Fairy Tales. And I'll listen to the replay, see how the mic audio is doing. It seems pretty... The last time it seemed pretty good, but I turned it up a little more, so it should be fine now. I think it should be pretty good. If it's too sensitive, I can turn it down 1 notch, and that might be perfect, but it might be good where it is. So let me switch over to the other screen. That's going to do it for the reading today. No more reading. But I really enjoyed it today. That was nice. It was nice to get that out of my system. I had a good time. Fun stories today. So what's Minecraft doing? Minecraft is looking at the fire. Now I was an orca whale because this home that I built is in San Diego. And I was the orca whale because of SeaWorld. What in the world? What is that? I have no idea what that is. That is bizarre. It's freaking me out. I don't know what that is. Is that another? It can't be another player. I'm in single player. That's like kind of creeping me out, to be honest. I don't know what, and it's looking right at me. What is this? I'm in single player, right? It would, if that was another player, it would show it right there. That's so weird. I don't know what that is. That's strange. It's like a Sherpa with some llamas from the Himalayas. That's what it looks like to me. It's so strange. Anyways, so I was the orca for SeaWorld. I remember we did one trip to SeaWorld, maybe two trips to SeaWorld. Yeah, I always was like a big fan of SeaWorld. I've always loved the dolphins and the whales. But I switched to the tiger because it's Year of the Tiger. And my kitten is kind of my little baby tiger. Funny thing, so it's Year of the Water Tiger. And my kitten, who's about a year old, he's about a year and a half, just about. He's kind of my little tiger, as I said. And he's part Bengal. He's not full-blooded Bengal, but he's part Bengal. And he's always been obsessed with water, which is a trait that Bengals have. They love water. So he always plays with water. He's a little water tiger. So just the coincidence of it being Year of the Water Tiger, and he's my little water tiger. So I thought that was just such a funny coincidence. And the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. I mean, isn't that weird? That's so crazy. You know, I've gotten to the point in my life where like that stuff really doesn't faze me anymore. Because I've just, with a little help from, I'm not going to say like I've made it up on my own. I've just happened to stumble across some lectures that have really kind of helped me think of things in a different way. And stuff that I've always kind of felt deep within me. But, you know, it's when you hear it from someone else, it kind of helps you just kind of, you think like, yeah, you know, maybe you're right. But, you know, I feel like the whole universe is just sort of connected. I don't want to get like too into it, but it seems like everything's just kind of connected like a big old spider web. And the way that I heard it described in a lecture, it was like dewdrops on a spider web. And in each dewdrop is a reflection of another dewdrop. And this spider web is filled with all these dewdrops. And they're all reflecting off of each other. And inside each dewdrop is the reflection of all the other dewdrops. And in all those other dewdrops is the reflection of that dewdrop. And they're all affecting each other. Even if it's just a tiny little... It's like the butterfly effect. If you've heard the butterfly effect, how a butterfly flapping its wings can kind of cause all these little changes that affect the entire world. So anyways, if you think that's silly, that's, you know, I have no problem with that. But, you know, I've got that little kitten. I've always called him my little water cat. He's a little water tiger. And now it's Year of the Tiger. And he's my Bengal kitten. He's a little Bengal cat. And the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. So it's just such a funny coincidence. But anyways, there's really no need to get into all that. All that stuff is out there. And if you're meant to find that kind of stuff, it's going to find you. So you don't need any help from me. But man, what is this? It's like there's another player. I don't know what this is. It's so weird. And he's looking right at me too. Anyways. Well, the sun has just set. The stars are out. The moon is rising. So I think it's a good time to call it here. I've never seen this thing until just now. I don't know what it is. It really looks like it's another player. But if it were another player, it'd have like a little name above it. And there's nobody showing up here. And I don't have this open to other players. Let me look. Multiplayer. Yeah, see, multiplayer is off. So I don't know what that... I've never seen it. It must just be a new thing. This never showed up till now. Pretty cool. Alright. I got a bag of... speaking of the Himalayas. Because see, it looks like a Sherpa with llamas from the Himalayas. I got a bag of Himalayan salt in my stocking for Christmas. I've got one of those salt lamps. I had to put it away though because I didn't want the cat to lick it. Salt is very bad for cats. See, I'm looking for a bed. I guess I could go up to my old bedroom. Let's go to bed. Since it's nighttime now, we're done streaming. Now see, I could go into the big bed in here, but that was never my bed. When I lived here for a year, I used to visit in the summers, but I did live here for one school year. I went to school. It was a nice school. It was a pretty cool school. One of my favorite kind of school experiences. I was never a school goer. I always did really well at tests. That's how I got fairly good grades. I never did homework. I never did homework. There's an episode of Home Movies where Brendan's like, he's saying the same thing. It's like, no, I don't take my work home with me. It's a quality of life issue. And the thing was about homework was it was clearly busy work to me. Well, part of it is busy work, and the other part is to kind of keep jamming that stuff into your head. Practice for the kids that needed the extra practice. But I never had that problem. So what I would do is, even with schoolwork, I didn't do the homework. I didn't do the schoolwork. What I did is when there was a test, I would basically ace the test. And that's how I got good grades. Now, it would balance out. It depends because, in certain grades and certain teachers, a large percentage of your grade would come from the tests. So if you did really good at the tests, you'd get a good grade. But then, maybe some teachers, they just wanted you to do the schoolwork. If it was fun schoolwork, I would do it. But if it was just stupid busy work, I would just be like, no, I'm on to this. This is busy work. I'm not going to bother. I'll just sit here and daydream. I was a big daydreamer. Always have been. So yeah, I would learn. I didn't mind learning. I never minded learning. And I would absorb the information so that when the tests came about, I knew all the information in the tests. So I would just ace the test. I might get 1 or 2 questions wrong. And that's how I got through school. Anyways, so enough of that. We'll just go lay in our bed here. We'll lay in bed. We'll put something on, and that's going to be the stream for now. Boy, I went a lot longer than I expected to, but I enjoyed it, so that's why I did. Alright, I have another rambling story I could go on about right now, just from memories of this place, but I'll leave it here for now. I've done enough rambling for one stream. Alright, if anybody's listening to this, take care. I'll be back. I appreciate anybody who's listening. It was fun today, and I'm sure it'll continue to be fun whenever it is fun, and if it's not fun, then I won't bother. No. I'll probably, if it's not fun, because I'm not going to lie, there's going to be days where my old cat's going to pass away soon, and that's going to be hard. So there's going to be days when there's stuff going on in my life, and I'm just not going to be in the mood. So those will probably just be short streams. But there's going to be days like this where I just enjoy it, and it's fun, and those will be the long streams. So there you go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, anyone who's listening. Take care and have a good one, and I'll be back. Later.